So we've seen that we can use applications. We've seen that folks are delivering the applications via software like iTunes. One of the big issues that the Bradley Review has identified is student dropouts. Engaging students, not only in learning communities, but social communities, and indeed academic staff in learning communities as well, and communities of practice. So this is all about engagement. One university that's done a great job is a small Christian university in Abilene, Texas, acu.edu, Abilene Christian University. It should be in the email I sent to you all. You've got the links to these. Let's hear from Bill Rankin, Prof of English, how he's using technology to engage students.
It's ironic that though we now have technologies to help us be more connected than ever before, we often find ourselves so busy that we can become more isolated. Clearly, we need some help. ACU's Connected initiative seeks to reverse this trend, to make contacting others on campus so quick, easy, and intuitive that communication barriers between teachers and students are broken down, enhancing communication and building stronger community. One way we've worked to do this is by simplifying and, where possible, automating access to traditional communication channels. One of my greatest challenges involves how I connect with the students in my class. I want to find a way for all of them to participate, but this can be difficult to pull off. Some students have naturally dominant personalities. Others are shy. Some are confident. Others are more tentative. I want to hear a variety of voices and perspectives, but the social dynamics in many classrooms can get in the way, giving me skewed or artificially narrow glimpses into what my students know and think. NanoTools are a suite of applications built into ACU Mobile to help solve some of these problems, augmenting student participation and engagement, and providing a new forum for discovery.
So these are tools very similar to the ones we've been using today. And acu.edu is well worth visiting if you want to have a look at how they're engaging their students and some of the software they're using. We actually are quite interested in seeing some of the work that Abilene Christian were doing, and indeed a number of other universities. So in a recent conference, EduCause in Perth, about 400 folks were there. We thought we'd try using some of these technologies. I'd like to get Steve to share with you some of the feedback we got.
Thanks, Archie. Anyone go to EduCause? Yep, a few people, interesting. So, oh yeah, Phil, it's good to see you there. One of the things that we thought we'd try and do is really incorporate some of the social media. So we armed Mr. Atherton with one of the trusty flip cameras and sent him around to do some on-the-spot interviews with some people. It was really interesting how we could get some virtual feedback very, very quickly and have it uploaded. So I'd like to share with you some of the examples. Pay attention, there is a trick question in here.
Hi, yeah. I found the use of the iPod actually fantastic with regards to being able to access exactly what was happening. The different sessions that were happening without having to worry about writing down where I was going to be, etc. So all round, actually, it really paid very well.
Well, I've just been enjoying the iTouch. It's the first time that I've had a chance to use it, but it's great. I've got mail going, I've got the calendar going, it's all going back to Exchange. And the only thing I want now is to get Skype to work, and that means I need a microphone in the iTouch. And I'm told by this fellow, Steve Atherton, that if you go and buy one of the headsets from the iPhones and plug it into the iTouch, then you can really use it as a wireless phone. That's what I want.
I'm Peter Candlebinder from the University of Technology, Sydney, and I'd just like to talk about my experience of using the iTouch here at the conference. I thought it was a great innovation to be given a freebie and be allowed to go and play.
Hi, I'm Sue Tate and I'm Teaching Services Manager for Massey University in New Zealand. And I'm interested in mobile technologies and how we may employ those for our students across all our campuses, the physical campuses as well as the virtual ones. And I have found it easy to use. I've now got it set up. I've been using YouTube, I've been logging into Stream, which is our online learning system. I've been using it for my email, and I've also obviously been using it to look at the recordings.
So of course the deliberate error in there is it's called an iPod Touch, not an iTouch. Remember that for a second. So what we did was exactly the same as we've done here. We gave everybody an iPod Touch for the duration of the conference. For me, it was fascinating to see that they all, and this is a group of IT professionals and academics, they all instantly went for the social media. So Facebook was the #1 application that people used, followed closely by Twitter. So we managed to get into the top 5 trends of Twitter over the weekend with 400 delegates. Really interesting. Now what Stephen did was shot that video and then uploaded it to an iMac on our editing booth using our podcast producer workflow, distributed that content. So not high production values, but back to the University of Leon, very quick ways of accessing the content. We found that the academics were instantly engaged in the polling, the same way you were, and gave an awful lot of feedback. And bear with me for a second while I get slightly nerdy. This is the technical diagram for how the conference was set up. Now what we used was 4 Mac Minis in each one of the rooms to record the conference. We took the conference agenda from the website, took the XML from there, so the data was already there, dropped it into an iCount, so we haven't spent a cent so far, and that then automatically triggered every recording of every presentation that was then uploaded through the server and accessed by the iPod touches. So when we were planning the event, we didn't do anything different from an event we'd normally support. We just used the existing technology there. So for us, it was a really powerful example of how the access device and the creation devices could work together to totally change the experience for the conference. And that got us thinking about how we could do some more of this stuff with developing some apps. And this is the one that you guys are using today. Now, this is an open source application that we've used extensively for conferences. You can download this from the University of Cincinnati for free. It's totally cross-platform, so to run on your Mac, your PC, your Linux machine, your Dreamcast, the web server doesn't mind. It's customized for the iPod Touch and the iPhone, but it's not unique to those. Any device to be able to access the internet will be able to use the polling questions that you've been using. And we haven't used the whole set of features available for this event. You can have conference agendas, you can have discussions for each session, and all of this data goes to a SQL database, so it can be logged. So one of the things we're really interested in talking to people tonight about is if you're running an upcoming event or conference and you'd like to incorporate the technologies we've talked about, come and see us afterwards, because the cost of the technology is already there. And we've started to see more and more people developing some incredibly powerful applications. So I'd like to share with you some of those now.
This is how you enter the App Store. And this is how you browse thousands of new apps. And this is how you download one, right to your phone. And this is when you realize this is going to change everything.
Well, wanted to show that to you as blatant advertising, but also to show folks how the App Store works. It has changed everything. What I find interesting is this ad looks just like an Apple ad. It's not.
So this is you, a normal student at a normal school. And you're wondering, what's new with the football team? When's the next game? And how can I get to my next class? But more importantly, where am I? And then you realize this school is anything but normal.
So we're finding, you've seen the app, a number of universities start to work on applications to define them. Just here in Brisbane, certainly folks like UQ, every senior executive and academic, from Vice-Chancellor Greenfield down, there are well over 400 phones there at the moment, being managed to automatically log in via profiles to the Exchange server. Basically, you just log in and it will automatically get you to UQ Exchange or UQ EduRoam and VPN. ANU, the techies there, actually run around with iPhones and iPod Touches. They are automatically informed when one of the machines in the common use laboratories is down. So before the students start complaining, they know there's a problem and they run off and fix it up. They get all the logs and stats. And what's also interesting is they're working on a student version with this geolocation stuff. So students walk onto campus and say, where's the nearest free machine? And they find it. Student management systems, our friends at Wollongong University doing some great apps like quiz apps where you can go in and do algebra quizzes and so on. They're working on some really great stuff. We've seen Otago and we've seen MIT's work, so in the higher ed space, quite a lot being done. If we're talking about social engagement, UNSW's O Week this year used iPod Touches, wore them in a Lanard and ran around the student guides, basically had all of the information, the maps, all of the documentation on that mobile device. So a great way to use to engage. Now, it's not just these, but who I'd like to visit is a chap from Stanford to share one of his applications with us.
I'm an assistant professor at Stanford University in the Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. For me, it was the dream job. I love to research how people make use of technology in terms of creating music, listening to music, and sharing music to basically unlock creativity in everyone. When I first started teaching, starting a company was certainly nowhere on the radar. And then the iPhone and the iPhone SDK came along. It was kind of the clincher for me to say, you know what, I want to bring visions of computer music research to the masses. So now I'm a co-founder and the chief creative officer at Smule. As soon as we got our hands on the iPhone SDK, immediately the wheels started turning in our heads of saying, how can we use the whole ecosystem of the iPhone platform to provide an experience that just wasn't possible before? We know we wanted to explore this idea of interactive expressive audio, and our most popular app to date is Ocarina. It transforms the iPhone into a magical flute-like instrument. We used multi-touch to provide the different fingerings to control pitch, and the accelerometer in the iPhone was then mapped to vibrato. And then we used OpenGL to animate the finger holes. A number of things in the iPhone SDK changed the way we thought about building software. One of those, for example, is core location. We use location to geotag people who have recently played the Ocarina. We can actually send that anonymously to the Smule cloud, as it were. And it's the first instrument that we know of in history that allows its players to hear one another from around the world. And so far, our users have listened to each other in over 40 million performances. We're diving much more deeply now on the social component. In Leaf Trombone World Stage, our new app, not only can you play the instrument, and others can indeed hear you around the world, the app will gather judges to give you feedback and to give you a score. We believe this is just the beginning of a new revolution where people will relate to each other differently and people will express themselves differently, all facilitated by what we can do on this device. It never ceases to amaze me that our team is such a small group of people, and yet through the iPhone platform, the SDK, and the App Store, we have apps that are literally all around the world now, in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people. To tell the truth, we didn't really know what we were gonna do fully. And to this day, I would say there's a large component of not knowing. Not knowing makes it really exciting for us. That is the very essence of what we call being Smulean. I'm Go Wong of Smule, creator of Ocarina.
Smulean indeed. So if you see a group of people blowing into their phones, they're not crazy, they're actually collaborating. Now look, the take-homes there, because there are going to be developers in the audience, is that the Software Development Kit, or SDK, is an amazing tool for being able to use core locations and a lot of the underlying technologies. There are a pile of developers out there. Certainly you can get online to the developer site. A number of students certainly are doing some great work. I'm fortunate enough to be on the review panel for the Apple University Consortium's grants for honours and developer students. And in this year, instead of just written applications, the students also submitted videos. I was blown away with some of the passion and the great ideas some of these students had. And with their permission, I'd like to share some of their thoughts.
And I love developing like pointless little applications. I've got a few on the App Store which are getting thousands of downloads, and it got me thinking, I would love to take this to the next level, that is the education sector, which is what iClass is, which is my new application that I'm proposing for this year. I'd love to be able to give this to a student, say classroom full of students. They walk into their class, it ticks them off the list to say that they're there, and it also allows them to send notes to each other or send notes to the teachers using gesture controls. Retrieve notes from the teacher, send requests. That kind of collaboration just doesn't exist on little mobile devices, and I would love to be able to do that.
I am passionate about using the Mac operating system and developing iPhone and iPod Touch application, specifically because I love my iPhone. And so do teenagers all around the world. So it makes perfect sense for them to use a technology they're comfortable with to help them manage a lifelong disease such as type 1 diabetes.
Be warned.
I'm an experienced Coca developer and have released several open source applications. My favourites are Cash, a simple budgeting application, and What I Did Today, an inverse to-do manager. For money, I do iPhone development as part of Secret Lab. Secret Lab is currently developing another game for the iPhone and for desktop called Button Squid. Button Squid is a unique strategy game that allows the user to upload their new levels they create within the game to Twitter.
Okay, a bit manic, but when he said for money, he wasn't actually kidding. He's actually been able to purchase his new car on money from software he's been developing with students, with a student company at Uni of Tassie. So, there is a market there for developers. Now, students recognise this, and we recognise it. A couple of months ago, we announced the iPhone Development University program so that folks could teach this as part of their curriculum. A number of universities certainly ran with it. UQ, for example, ran with it with their course that they recently got up and going. In fact, I was fortunate yesterday to judge 4 groups of this course. And some of the apps they've done would blow you away. They've done great work. I asked Phil Long to give us some feedback.
And seen students talk about their iPhone development projects, applications that they think are going to be exciting and useful and interesting. The Apple iStore has 1 billion downloads from all over the planet. And if you're asking the question, is there something that's really going on here, then you have been on Mars for the last several months. This is a place where, in this planet, the mobile applications development environment is the applications development environment for at least the next 5 years, probably the foreseeable future.
So the feedback we're getting from universities is quite strong. About a dozen universities in Australia are starting to teach this as part of their IT curriculum. And if you need another indicator that it's really catching on, Stanford made available their iPhone development course on their iTunes U site. In 7 weeks, 1 million downloads. So look, in conclusion, a number of universities are certainly doing a good deal of work with mobile learning. Certainly this Alt-C grant at Wollongong University is examining mobile learning. What we tend to believe, though, is that it's really just a matter of looking at the technology as an extension of self. The personal computer is more than that. It's a device for creating content. iTunes and the iPod's more than just a music device. It's a way of distributing content. And of course, if you've hopefully found out today, the iPod Touch and the iPhone's more than that. It's a mobile learning device. Hopefully, we've given, by the look at case studies, by having a look at what other universities are doing and examples of work, you've got an idea that this tool makes it possible to engage and to involve students and get them connected. Look, to finish off, just like most folks in the classroom, we need some feedback to help us plan other sessions. So if you could jump for the next few minutes, I'll get the maestro to do a couple of minutes of music. If you could jump into the app, M-Learning app, polling software, and give us some feedback. Questions should take about 5 or 6 seconds to pop up. Maestro? Will be the prize. And that number is on the back of your iPod Touch.
Or was issued to you.
Or was issued to you if you're using an iPhone.
Lots of responses, Terry?
Press the magic
Push
key.
the button, Terry.
Press that key. And we should see a number. Have a look at your back of your iPod Touch, or if you've got a magic number, and come on down, winner, because we're going to ask you a question. This is a game of skill, not chance.
That's right. Lottery laws dictate.
Lottery laws, Queensland, New Zealand, and New South Wales.
No one has found the number on the back?
Yes, here she comes.
Someone's working their way down now. Go South. Feels like the price is right, really, doesn't it?
Here comes your tricky question. Oh, good. Check this, right? I will check. You're right. I'm pretty trusting. Correct. Okay, here's the question. Is this an iTouch or an iPod Touch?
That's a great question.
Correct. Well done.